In this video, we're going to go over two things. One is how to make thumbnails and what thumbnails are, as well as how this links to the anatomy units my older students are doing. Thumbnails are a technique used by artists to roughly sketch out the composition of what they'd like to create. So generally, a good place to start is to start with the shape of your paper. I'm going to imagine working on squares because I've always preferred working on a square shape for my art. So I'm going to start by just drawing a series of small squares. Now, how many images you choose to do for thumbnails is up to you, but generally I advise my students to have a minimum of 6 because it lets you explore different ideas. Now I've chosen to make 7 here because I wasn't really counting as I was going along, and I've left space to do 2 slightly bigger ones. Now these bigger ones tend to be what I refer to as mock-ups, which helps you kind of define exactly what your artwork is going to look like on a larger scale and really make some concrete decisions. Now with thumbnails, you want to work quickly. You just want to have a general gist of what the image is. Now I'm going to be using images of a skeleton. If I was in the classroom while I was recording this video, I would be borrowing the skeleton from the science department and I'd be doing my drawings from there. However, since I'm working from home and because of the restrictions of COVID, so we can't really borrow things from other departments, I'm going to be using the app Essentail Skeleton 4 to find my images. So I've taken a second to play with the app and I found an image and angle I like of the skeleton. So I'm just going to try drawing it straight out and seeing what I think of it. Now based on the size of the square that I made, it's going to decide how much of this skeleton that I'll be able to draw. Really you want to aim for about 30 seconds of drawing to sort of get an idea of what it looked like. Now right now I've made it very close up. I can't actually see any of the rib cage and I do kind of want to see some of the rib cage. So I'm going to go a little bit smaller with this and see if I can get an angle that I like. This is why we do thumbnails, to just kind of figure out what is the angle that we like. Okay. It's getting a little bit closer, but I'm still not seeing enough of the breastbone, which is what I want to show off, because the breastbone kind of looks like a tie, and I kind of want to show off that idea of someone being both a skeleton and a businessman. So I'm making it a little bit smaller on this next image. I'm hoping that I can show off enough of that breastbone, there we go, so that I can kind of represent the idea that I want. You're not worrying about making perfect images, you just want to get a rough idea of what it would look like. So this gives me a bit of a suggestion. I like this general idea, but I like to try a couple different positions. So I'm going to move my skeleton around on my app and I'm going to take a look at it from a different angle, and I'm going to try drawing my guy from a different way to see if I can find an angle that I like better. Okay, well, this one looks a little bit too cheery, a little too friendly from the angle. Having his chin tilted down has kind of given him a bit of a smile. I'm not a huge fan of that one. Okay, let's try one just slightly from the back for a different angle. We try different angles and different compositions because we're trying to find the one that we like the best, we think will make the most interesting image. Okay, I kind of like that one. But again, I'm not putting too much effort into these. They're quick drawings that just have a little bit of detail. Let's see. Okay, let's try this angle. This angle looks pretty good. Let's try having more of the skull in there. Not sure what I think of that one. Let's try drawing part of that breastbone first, and then the clavicle. Bring up the neck, see what happens to that jaw. I just have it up here and just kind of cut off the nose. Avoid the whole eye section entirely. Okay, so these are my rough ideas. Not all of them worked out the way I wanted to. They're all a little bit different, but it was a chance for me to play around and take a look at the ideas. So now I'm going to do my mock-ups. With my mock-ups, I'm going to spend a little bit more time doing the drawing because I want to sort of establish a bit more information and play around with some ideas. So I'm going to go back to that second, third image, somewhere between these two. It's going to lead to that one over there. So I want to give myself a rough drawing of that. Okay, well, I've made his head way too narrow, I can see that. But this is only a mock-up. This isn't a good piece of art. It's just a chance for me to play around with the idea. So I'm not even going to bother erasing, okay? I am actually just going to draw right over top and try to work in what that idea might look like. Because all this is about is planning what the image might become. Okay, so that gives me an idea. Might block in some shadows to kind of know where my dark spots are. It might help me establish what other areas I want to darken up. Okay, not overly sold on that. I kind of want to get the angle a little bit more on the head. So let's see if I can get that right in my second mock-up. Oh, there we go. Better push on the nose. Get the orbital of the eye. What have I done here? Oh, okay, there we go. There's the cheekbone coming down to the jaw, and then it looks like I've drawn the jaw twice by accident, trying to get it in the right spot. And get those ribs in for the rib cage. Okay, so now that I've kind of established it a little bit better, I might go in and add a bit more of the other materials I plan on using. Now, I tend to like working with ink, so I've got here a Essentail brush pen. Okay, these have capsules inside them that are filled with ink, and I made the mistake of storing this one upside down, so it's very juicy right now, hence the drips of ink that have appeared everywhere. It was a bit of a mistake on my part, but I'm going to use that to block in a little bit of what I'm intending by getting just kind of the darkest values in there. Okay, and I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this one just to see if this will turn into something if I spend a bit of time on it. But no, I'm really not liking what I've done there with the jawline, and I don't think I'm going to keep working on this one for much longer. And I'm also using a uni-pin fine line. This is a 0.5 for the size of the nib. So I'm going to use this to just define a bit more of the area and use some hatching lines. And that's going to allow me to kind of build in some shadows. oversimplifying his teeth just now because this is only supposed to be a quick sketch. Shouldn't take very long. Mock-ups shouldn't take all your time. They should be relatively quick. And just kind of give you an idea of what you're going to do when you come to your good version. Okay, let's build in that tie shape, the breastbone, and bring out those clavicles. And maybe a little bit on the spine coming down. Okay, that's gonna help me kind of get a better idea. Oops, yep, that is definitely too juicy from being left upside down. That ink is getting everywhere. So I'm gonna use that to just help me define where the ribs are. A little bit better so I can see kind of what I'm doing and block in that area. Okay, so now I've got a better idea with this mock-up of what I want my final image to look like. Okay, so I'm going to use this uni-ball white Signo Broad pen. This is going to allow me to go and re-establish some of those highlights just so I can remember where everything should be. Just want to get a few highlights marked in so that I can remember my rough draft, what my intentions were. And with that, I have finished my mock-up. All I need to do was give myself just a basic bit of information. This is going to allow me to go on and create a final copy on a larger piece of paper using more established materials. But this planning helps me get there. So with this planning, I've done my thumbnails, I've done 2 mock-ups, and I've really kind of solidified exactly the layout that I want to use for my final composition.